So we're going to dive into a subject that the title is How to Choose the Right Investor. But really, there's no one answer to rule them all. And what I'm trying to do today in this webinar is to insert some order within the chaos. So just a few words about me. Yes, I am a presentation expert. I'm a member of the Presentation Guild. I am also a business consultant. I am a member of the Israel Business Consultant Association. And I just merge these two loves of mine. And lately, I've joined also a group called Venture Investment. They invest in startups and I work some of the time with them. So let's just dive into the webinar itself. We're going to talk about a few subjects, all of them around investment in startup. Obviously, that's the realm where I live in. And I assume that most of the people who participate here today. This webinar is going to take about 40 to 45 minutes to 50 minutes where I'm presenting and showing and talking about these things. Please feel free to ask questions in the chat at any time, and I will try to answer them as we go. And if it's something that is going to interrupt or in anyhow divert me from the main subject, I will just leave it to the Q&A session that it's going to be at the end, about 10, 15 minutes, and I don't mind staying extra few minutes if you'll still have some questions. So the first thing I would like to start with is some sort of an overview. Everybody knows that there's some sort of a crisis, maybe a bubble that burst. And I want to give a short and sweet overview of what happened, why in the beginning of 2023, the investment in startups are a bit slower. I already want to say that there's also opportunities, and I want to talk a little bit about it as well. So the traditional investment flow was LPs or even institutional investors that invested in VCs, venture capitals, who they invested within the startups. That was the traditional flow. That was the traditional flow, at least until, let's say, 2017, 2018 or so. But something happened then, and we started seeing a non-traditional investment flow. In this case, the LPs, they invested directly in startups. And the problem that was created, and this is the beginning of what we call the bubble, bigger deals, because these LPs and institutional investment companies, they have big money. And they started introducing big money into the investments and into the startups. Therefore, the startups came with higher valuations. Not always, we couldn't even know always why, but instead of just hearing about unicorns, we suddenly started hearing about decacorns and many other big words like this. With it came some bigger scaling expectations, because when you evaluate a company at such and such $1 billion or $1 trillion, I don't think we got there yet, but at least in $1 billion, you expect them to grow and to scale up really fast and start bringing that value. Another problem was that they had less expertise. They weren't really that expert within startup life cycles, within the startups themselves, and they just introduced money. They wanted to be part of the system, of the ecosystem, and the due diligence wasn't done carefully enough. So this was the flow. It started again 2017, 2018. That's when we start. Just to remind you of WeWork and the whole farce with SoftBank investing money, and they tried to get the valuation they thought they needed, and they couldn't do it. So at some point, the end of 2018, I guess that something happened and we thought that the bubble is going to burst. 2019 was the second highest year of VC funding of the decade. And you will see that we will go back to 2019 in a bit, and we'll see why, and I'll try to explain why. It was a slight pullback from 2018. Yeah, we started seeing a little bit of, trying to reorder the flow, the traditional flow, or going back to it, but it was still a year of change. And we thought that we're going to see the traditional coming back. Now, this is why 2019 is also the second highest year, because things were starting to correct themselves. And then this will be our benchmark. We'll see why. And then, 2020 happened. So in the beginning of 2020, or the first half of 2020, the world has stopped. That's obvious. But also, we started seeing that the trend that everybody wanted to be inside the startups got back really fast. And that's because in Q3 and Q4, we started seeing a lot of investment. And that is because the world really came online. Even companies that were partly online before, there was a lot of demand. I'm not sure if all the demand was real, but it seemed that this is a turning point. A lot of startups figuring out, even Zoom really grew up during this period. And we saw a lot of companies trying to create online presence for everybody, really. Now, the bubble started to create, and we felt that there was some sort of a FOMO, the fear to miss out. Anybody wanted to be invested in startups. So it was like everybody was in. Again, if we thought that in 2019 things are going to go back to normal, not so much, not really. We could see that the bubble started to expand in 2021, and it wasn't just the amount of money, it was the amount of deals, it was the amount of money. Everybody was in, really. It was like crazy, and people invested directly in startups and some in VCs, and there was really, it was chaotic. You can see, I'm just showing here some data we have from, I think that one is from PitchBook, yeah? And the deals were crazy, but then 2022 came, and then suddenly most of the companies realized that there wasn't much behind all these companies, all these startups, and all this money that was invested. And it was, we said that transactions increased by 60%, the transactions, while the sum of funds increased by 125%. That was crazy. I mean, there was no real reason. And the demand started to go down. 2021, people went back to almost life as normal. And if everybody thought that everything is going online, no, people went back to shop regularly. They wanted to go to malls. And it didn't change as much as it was expected during 2020 or even 2021. So by 2022, we saw a really decrease both in the sums and the deals. And people realized that there was a bubble, and the bubble really started to burst. We can see again, Q3 of 2022, the funding fell a lot. And we came to the end of 22 with a real sense of crisis. Not to mention, things like FTX. Again, if we realized that something wasn't right. We had FTX that we couldn't ignore. Again, that was something of a FOMO syndrome. Everybody wanted to be in the fintech, and not everybody really understands fintech enough to start investing money and to realize what's going on. The crypto in general is an unstable market, and people who expected just for it to just grow and grow, and they got scared because of things. And the big problem was the poor due diligence in general, because when you run to invest money and everything, the due diligence wasn't as much as it should have been. Temasek that invested in FTX, they even published, and just if somebody wants to scan this QR and see how they wrote on their website sort of an apology that, they realized that the due diligence wasn't good enough. They didn't really check the founders. They didn't check what the founders were doing with money. And even, let's say that even if everything was kosher there, as we like to say, still it was managed really badly. And we know what happened, or I assume that we know what happened. So again, we can see the dive in the deals, in money. This one is from CB Insights. We know that we came at the end of 2022 really beaten. Now, you know that Albert Einstein said that in the midst of a crisis lies great opportunities. And this is something that I still want to encourage startups. Not everything is bad. Yes, there is a crisis. I mean, we cannot deny it, but we should really start looking and trying to understand what are the opportunities we have. First of all, we assume that now we're going back to the fundamentals when it comes to the traditional investments flow. Again, the LPs will start to invest in VCs and VCs in startups. But one of the big changes that we're going to see is that there is money. It's not that there's no money. The money exists. It's just what we're going to do with the money and the way that the VCs are going to allocate those funds they have. Yes, VCs also took a beat, and some of them are left with much less money than they expected. But we will go back to that 2019 benchmark, which we figured. So we can see, this is from the Founder Institute, we can see that they have, going back to the pre-seed, what they expect companies in the pre-seed to have, the growth rates, the monthly revenue, whatever they expect them to have, seed, round A. I'm not talking so much today around Bs and Cs. I am going to talk a little bit more about the early stages. This is my ecosystem. This is where I live. And this is where I know a little bit more about what's going on. And we can see that even when it comes to the industry itself, they start looking at what's going on industry specific, and not just, let's go and find the startups and we think that it might work. We will see that the due diligence is much more serious at the moment. So I am saying, and this is me saying, that I think that we are going to see now somewhat of a semi-traditional investment flow, because the VCs that used to invest usually seed and round A and further up, they're starting to invest also in very early stages. We'll see a lot of VCs now encouraging pre-seed startups to appeal and to start talking to VCs, something that previously they didn't usually take any pre-seed or seed startups. Even the larger companies, the largest VC, are seeking to invest in seed. I know that some of the European VCs, even in the pre-seed stage of the startups. So what can we expect for 2023? This slide, and this is from a webinar I did in the beginning of 2023, but I still think that, we finished Q1, we're in Q2 now, but I still think that we're going to see some trends to expect. Series A is going to be crunch, and I think that it will take a little bit more time to be able to get funds for Series E. We will have some large companies that will refocus, maybe try to change a little bit the way they spend their money. We are going to see some merger and acquisition, some consolidation, and we can see some layoffs. They will probably accelerate. We see that at the moment in Israel. I know that also in the United States, in Europe as well. But as I said before, we also have some opportunities because now the VCs, as I said before, they start to invest in early stages, in early stage startups. They want to diverse their portfolio a little bit. And instead of investing large sums of money in a few startups, they prefer to take the money and just allocate it a little bit different among some other smaller startups, and maybe to start in the seed, pre-seed seed, and then to help them scale up. The powder money will still need to be used. Yeah, money exists. We know that money always needs to find a way to make more money. And of course, yeah, we have the interest rate that is growing, but still there's enough money in the market. I think that early stage startups might find opportunities in, let's say, round A startups that are looking to increase their value and to increase their services, but maybe adopting or integrating seed startups just in order to scale up their business. So this is an opportunity, and you will see later on when I talk about investor and how to choose your investor. This is also sort of an investment that is good to consider. The layoffs, they free talents. Yeah, they will be available. Some of them are going to leave their startups with a nice package of compensation, which means that they'll be able to work for less money just for the pleasure and just to get that sense of starting fresh and starting new and being part of something new again. So obviously this is also an opportunity. But we need to take into consideration that the team is very important now, because part of the due diligence is to see what the team actually brings to the venture. Yeah, it's not just, okay, we're two nice guys, we've been in the Israeli army, whoever knows, in 8200, but they'll need to see that they can also take a business to do something with it. And if not, they will need to have the support team. Yeah, talents will be available. So it is a good thing to bring on talents, get them on board, maybe also as some board members, as consultants, not necessarily as employees. Each team member should bring some value to the business. And advisors or even consultants can be seen as the extension of the team. And again, this is very important, because if you bring on board a consultancy or a good consultant, I think that the market understands that they have a very important role in being available to take the startup and to actually grow it as a business and not just as a venture. Business plan is very important, and they start looking very deeply, and they start to ask questions that should have been asked before and weren't. Nowadays, I see that investors really care about the market, about how you're going to get to the market, why these numbers are here, how well did you check them. We will talk a little bit more about business plan and what exactly it means. So investors now are picky, but they are very interested. They will be interested in you only if they see that you can walk the talk. So this is a little bit of let's say, a market overview about the investment in general in startups. What I want to talk now is about the investors. So are they all the same? Obviously not, but let's see a little bit about investors, startups, First of all, I would like to start with a short, again, just a short overview of the life cycle of startup. This is something I'm sure you know, but just to make a point here, we have the ideation, the validation. This is something, you know, that we can speak about in the middle of the night. Launch, growth, maturity, and then exit. Although really the exit is possible at almost any stage. Are there any questions so far? Okay, I'm just continuing. According to this lifestyle, now we also have investments cycle. We usually start with pre-seed. This is in the ideation and between the ideation and validation, and the seed is usually between the validation and the launch, or maybe into the launch. Round A is launch, growth, and then we have B and round C, and at the maturity, they'll have to know what's the exit point for them. Are they going to just become an LP? They're going to sell, to whatever they need to do. So if we're talking about these life cycles and about the investment, let's see what type of investors usually invest. And again, when I'm saying usually, I'm trying to be, it's not written in the stone. This is the general idea. This is a very generalization, if I can say. But usually the idea that the money would come from family, friends, own money, some funds that the founders have. And then they have crowdfunding, which can be the ideation, validation. It will take sometimes even to the seed. I've seen companies managing to launch prototype and even some pilot with crowdfunding. We have angel investors that traditionally start between the pre-seed, seed, and some of the angel investors can go way long, and Series A. Again, angels sometimes even went further. Traditionally, VCs started somewhere between seed, round A, and they continued the whole way. We have family offices. This is also a very good source of getting money. And obviously, again, the LPs, the institutional investors, they nowadays especially will come somewhere between growth, maturity, and later on. Now, what is changing at the moment, we will talk about it soon, but now, and not just now, we always had them, but nowadays even more so, we have additional investors that they're not really depending on the stages. We can have some accelerators, usually they'll be at the beginning, but a strategic partner, it can just start investing in the pre-seed and go along the whole way. As I said before, mergers and acquisitions, they can happen at almost any stage, and they become, again, some sort of an investment. At least it's a cash flow, a really good cash flow source. What have changed, and I think is going to stay like this for at least the coming 2 years, is that the angel investors, the VCs, and even family offices, as I said before, they are entering sooner, while the LPs, the institutional investors, they will go a little bit further down the life cycle. So now I'm asking what we started talking, yeah? So who is my best investor? What do I really want? And as I said before, there's no one answer to rule them all, because we might have more than one type of investors. But I think that when we decide, or start to decide which kind of investors we want, we need to ask ourselves a few questions. So obviously, the first question will be, what are our needs? How much money do we want to raise? When do we want to raise it? What is the roadmap? Yeah, for how long we're going to need these funds? What's going to happen next? How many rounds do we want? What do we not want to achieve with these investments? What is our traction projection? When we're going to start selling? When we're going to start making our own profits, our own money? Again, what's the timetable? What's the roadmap? How much we're going to do? And how much has been invested so far? By whom? How much, where we can dilute our shares forever, but how much money was invested? How many partners do we have? How many partners do we want? A lot of questions, and I don't think that one startup is exactly the same like the other. There's a lot of questions that needs to be asked, and obviously there should be some resource allocation. And when I'm talking about the resource, I talk also a lot about connections, because if we are connected and we have the right connections and people that can bring us, let's say, to a VC, even if we think that maybe an angel investors would be the one that we would approach traditionally, but if we have a good connection to a VC, maybe we'll go to the VC and vice versa. If we have very good connections with angels and they're willing to invest, it doesn't matter if a VC can invest. So it's also a question, how can we get to them? How close we are? What are the resources that we can do? And another resource we need to think about is the marketing. What do we have and what do we need to prepare in order to obtain these investors? Are there any questions so far? Anybody wants to add something? You can also comment on what I'm saying from your own experience, or if you want to elaborate on anything that I said, please feel free to do that. And if not, I'll just continue a little bit. And now we want to talk a little bit, when I'm saying materials, marketing materials to investors, what do I mean? This is already my realm, the one that I live in. So what sorts of marketing materials? We have a lot of words that use, pitch decks and investor presentations, business plan, one-pager, business presentation, executive summaries. People come to me with so many words, and I'm trying to say that each one has its own merit. We need to use it, each one at a different point in time, maybe. So I don't think that business presentation is at the stage when we start raising money, or executive summary, but pitch deck usually is for presentation when we present in order to in front of people. And an investor presentation can many times be either as a presentation, sent as a presentation file, or as a PDF. A business plan will usually be on an Excel file, Google Sheets, whatever, but it should include numbers, and it should show how we came to those numbers. And that could be an Excel file or a PDF file. One pager should really be a PDF. A business presentation, I wouldn't do it, but maybe a website, even if it's a simple website, but somewhere where people can have more information about us. Instead of an executive summary, again, I don't know why people are talking about it. Yes, maybe in a presentation, a longer presentation, you want to give something. I don't like having a summary, because from my point of view, most of these materials should be some sort of an essence. Yeah, we are trying to get investors on board. Once we're already talking to them, that's something else. But a video, and very important to have a demo, something that the investors can understand quickly what we have. Now, one major thing, please do not send a link to a folder. How many times people want me to help them find some investors or finders, And they say, here, this is the link. We have a lot of materials there. Guys, I'm not going to sit and go through the whole folder where you have version 1 and version 2 and an old one and May and June. And don't send me links. Please send me the documents. This way I can do a very fast forward to somebody who might be interested. So when you send materials, unless specifically asked to give a link to a folder, send the materials themselves. This is a very important thing because a lot of investors, you know, when we sit and talk, many times they would say that when somebody sends them a link, they usually they don't even get back to those founders. Okay, so, yep. This is about the marketing materials. And now I want to talk a little bit about, fine, how do we implement all this stuff and everything I said so far? These are my 2 cents and what I think that startups should be looking for and seeing where to put, you know, to focus the energy. So first of all, as I said before, we need to have a business plan, and I will show you soon what I think is a business plan and an investor presentation. As I said before, to have different materials for different needs. And I would like to have a few moments to talk about bringing experts to your team, as I said before, whether as part of the team, as board members, or as external consultants. What is a business plan? See, this is something from Investopedia that written document describes in detail how business, usually a startup, that's not true, defines its objectives and how it go to basically every venture, every business, even a solopreneur should have a business plan. And we'll see in a moment what I think is a business plan. A business plan should give some answer to simple WH questions. And this is not an English class, but still I like to use those questions. We start with why. Why did I start this business? And again, whether it's a startup, whether it's a shoe store, whether it's a healer, whatever. Why do we do what we're doing? And then what are you doing? What are we offering? What is our business? What it's doing? Who are we selling our product, services, ideas? Who is really our customers and who is going to enjoy from our fruit of labor? When, where, I think that this is quite easy to figure out. Am I a 24 hours call center? Am I just giving 4 hours a day consultancy? And where? Is it a local business? Is it a global business? Is it everywhere, somewhere? Where's the market? I don't know. And then how, you know, the little nitty-gritty, what do I need to do, and the machinery, and how I'm going to get from me, my store, to my clients, all the how to, you know, all the tasks that we need to do, what needs to happen in order to make this business thrive and become a successful business. Needs. Do I need skills? Do I need machinery? Do I need software? Do I need specific employees? What are my needs in general? Now, all this plan could be on a simple page of paper, and it can be in a 50-page document if we are a large enterprise and we have a lot of product lines and a lot of markets and a lot of stakeholders. So that's why I'm saying that the business plan is usually not just numbers, but also some vision and why we're doing and who are my customers. A lot of thinking about how am I going to take my idea and make it into a thriving business. So once we know what a business plan is, let's see what are the important topics that I think that any investor presentation and even a one-pager should include based on this business plan, because this is really what the investor want to know. What's your idea? How you're going to make this idea that you have into a thriving business? So the why would be what we call the problem. And many times I see that founders know exactly what the solution is, which is the next one here, but they don't always specify the problem well enough. So the problem really needs to show the investors that there is a demand for the solution. If you remember when I spoke earlier about due diligence and about how everybody wanted to be in, and how in 2021 everybody thought that whatever is going online, and nowadays the word AI and ML, and these are great words and these are great technologies, but just saying that I have an application based on AI and ML, that's nice, but who is going to pay for it? And is there really market? Are people willing to have this? Is it this solution you're bringing? Is it something that people will be willing to pay? And is it something that's really missing from the world? Because most of us have a lot of nice ideas. I would like to have something that scratches my back whenever I feel an itch. But will I be willing to pay, I don't know, $10,000 for such a thing? I'm not so sure. Maybe for $5, I'm willing to pay. Or maybe not enough because I have somebody to scratch my back. Later on, when I talk about the whom, we have a few issues to address here. This is more than just one, because the whom is obviously the end user. And many times the end user is not the client. We also need to be able to understand what's the end user and who's the client. Let's say if we are in the medical device market, and the end user is going to be the doctor, is going to use that medical device, but he's not going to necessarily be the one to purchase it. The one who's going to purchase is the clinic, the hospital, maybe the ministry. So they are the clients, and we need to show when we talk to them what's the benefits for the end user, what's the benefit for the client himself. So we need to understand very well that they are not the same and what's the value proposition for each one of them. As I said before, the team. This is also very important, and I took it as part of the whom, because these are the people who are operating the business. Not to forget, and this is part of the problem, solution, end user, all of this is why now? What's the opportunity? This is something that a lot of investors want to understand, because too many times we had great technologies that people couldn't use. I remember, I'm old enough to remember at some point they tried to, when the first cell phones, not even cell phones, it was just the big cellular phones we had, when they tried to develop a language, I think it was WAN, I'm not so sure about it, but there was the phones themselves couldn't operate them yet. In the beginning, we had some things with the VR, virtual reality. 10 years ago, people started talking about it, but there wasn't enough equipment to be able to use VR technology. So that was way too early. And then we also have a lot of people, they come to me, young founders, and say, oh yeah, this is something like Facebook, or this is something like Waze, or this is something like Uber. This might be a little bit too late. Maybe there are too many competitors at the moment. Maybe this is something that the market is already filled with products and services. So we need to understand, to show that there's a specific opportunity, whether the end user are looking for some solution, whether this is a new technology, but it can be commercialized really fast. Things like this. The when and where, I changed them a little bit again. This is the status, what has been done so far. what was invested, what do we have? Do we have already some MVP or prototype? Do we have any pilot maybe that we ran? Do we have some clients? We need to know where the venture is at the moment. And market potential, I can't stress enough. I think that I do have a slide about it, about market potential and what needs to be done there, so I leave it a little bit later. The how is really the business model. I can't stress enough how much is important to have a business model. And when somebody says to me, yeah, we are a B2B company. No, B2B is the go-to-market, is the way to get to my clients. But the business model needs to show how much, what do we have, how much we're going to sell, how many units, are we going to manufacture, are we going to just sell the know-how? A business model needs to be very precise, and it needs to be based on, not just on like this, why we think that that's the price we can sell and things like this. Needs, here we need, this is where we start talking with the investors, you know, how much, what for? It's not just enough to say we're raising $1.5 million at the moment or $3 million. What we're going to do with them, the exact allocation for each part of this money, for how long. Nobody is going to really give you $1.5 million to write a check. Yeah, we need to have some change points. We have to have a roadmap. We need to have some burn rate to know exactly when we're going to need money, when we're going to start selling, when we're going to introduce some money. So I want to go back a little bit to go to market. I didn't include a slide here because I wasn't sure if I'm going to have time. So if I'm going to speak about the go-to-market, we have the potential market, and many times people exaggerate with their potential market. I like to give an example here. Let's say that I have a soda can, and it's an eco-friendly soda can. So when people start saying, or, you know, the founders say, yeah, the soft drinks market globally is so-and-so gazillion dollars. This is not a potential market for us. I mean, we're not going now to overtake the whole soft drinks market. There will always be some bottles and beers and other products in the market. So our potential market, the whole overall, would be the cans, you know, the canned sodas. That's our potential market. But are we going to buy the whole market? You know, everybody is willing to pay a little bit more because it's an eco-friendly can. I don't know, maybe yeah, maybe not. But usually what we'll do is to try and figure out how many people actually care about the planet, and how many people, you know, as a percentage, are willing to pay a little bit more in order to buy something sustainable. And from this market, now we need to see what's our obtainable market. So the one was TAM, the total total available market, and then we go to the total addressable market. Now we're going to speak about the serviceable obtainable market, which means what's our penetration rate? How much market are we going to have in the first year, the third year, maybe the fifth year? And this would be, we need to show these markets and not just say that the soft drinks market is such and such gazillion dollars. Okay, now if I'm going to talk about the next topic, which is have different materials, and that's what I was talking about materials, what we said is when we want to obtain a meeting, and most of the time this is where all our energy focuses on, to obtain those meetings, to speak to the investors, because once we get to speak with them, many times it will just be with a demo, with a prototype, with just talking. So to obtain the meeting, what we need is usually a one-pager, a lot of middlemen, like I would say, like finders, or maybe even an investor that you spoke to, and they'll say, listen, this is not my type of an investment, but give me your one-pager and I'll send it to somebody who might be interested. Or even people like me, you know, that I'm always in contact with both startups and investors. If I get an interesting one-pager and I hear about even some other startup who is looking for something, many times I can make this connection just to help. So a one-pager is a very important document in order to obtain a meeting. And the same is this presentation, which I call the investor presentation, not the pitch deck, which is something like a slide a slides doc, where this is a presentation that can stand alone, that I can send to somebody, and if it's written well, they can understand quite well what's the problem and what's the solution, and they can decide fairly quick if they are interested in a meeting or not. So I don't think that a presentation is going to get you the actual funding. I think that just a presentation is somewhat the connection, to create the connection, to obtain the meeting. The due diligence later on is a lot deeper than just the presentation. And during a meeting, I think that that's where you need what we call a presentation with animations, things that you will talk about. Many times it won't even be a presentation if you have a good demo, or if you have some videos, if you have a prototype, if you have some procedures. These are things that you can show during a meeting. And after the meeting, many times you met with investors, and as I said before, they said, okay, maybe that's interesting. I'm not so sure. Let me speak to my friends. Let me see with my colleagues. You'll need some sort of a handout. And I think that a good handout for this after meeting will be the same presentation that we spoke before, that slide document, the one that is very visual and it's sweet and short, but it's still good enough to explain things that exist there. And now, as I said before, my last topic before I want to leave this last 10 minutes for some Q&A is the thing about getting expert. And I say that obtaining experts or consultants, it is an investment. It is not an expense. Many times I know that, startups are trying to be bootstrap and let's do everything on our own. But if they don't have the proper market and they haven't done a market research, and if they didn't have some sort of assistance with creating the numbers for the business program, many times an accelerator that takes money, it's also sort of an expert, an investment, and all sorts of programs that you can deal with, whether it's by government, whether it's other programs. I think that Miraja also has these programs. And this is so important because, these experts, whether they are paid for or as part of an accelerator, part of an institution you work with, they will get you closer, faster from point A to B, and will the time you'll save and the efforts we're going to save in getting to the proper, to the right investor and to have the proper materials, this is very important. Before we go to the Q&A, and this is where I'm going to end my presentation, if you enjoyed my webinar, you're welcome to join me on LinkedIn, and I would really like if you can endorse, if you can connect, and if you can follow, because many times I give these webinars, and if you enjoyed it, just to recommend it to other people. So thank you very much for being here. And now we'll go to the Q&A, and I'm just ending my my screen share.
Thank you so much, Jude. That was excellent. And as you said, let's open to Q&A. You guys are welcome to send your questions to the message chat box or just ask directly.
Yes, Yossi?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So let's say that in the past we approach many VCs. They say that we are in too early situation, and now the things are changed. So this is a point to go back to those VCs and ask them again to look based on those changing of circumstances.
First of all, you might do that. And before you do that, you will see that many of the VCs nowadays, if you go into the website, they will even have some places where you can, I've seen some of the VCs even just saying upload, if you are a pre-seed and seed, just upload your deck or your one pager, and they will say exactly what they're looking for and what they are giving. So yes, I would suggest strongly to revisit them. I mean, there's nothing to lose. They might have changed their portfolio requirements, and I think that this can be a good start.
Thank you.
Any other questions, whether concerning what I've said, or maybe if you have other questions that I didn't talk about during my presentation, if I know and if I can assist, with pleasure. A little more in depth, the difference between a slide doc and the investor presentation. Yeah, well, the investor presentation and the slide doc are the same. What I said, that there is a little bit of difference, and again, this is more my words. I'm not so sure that everybody will agree with me, but a presentation that you present and you are the real presentation. Yeah, the PowerPoint or Canva, whatever, is just behind you, and it's supposed to maybe show some processes and maybe give some numbers and things that you want, but you are talking, you are explaining. The slide doc is something that you're sending when you're not there to explain. So if, let's say, you speak about, maybe we'll take a go-to-market, and when you're talking about it, when you are in person, presenting in person, you might just have there saying B2B, or let's say B2B2C. But then you are explaining that you are going to approach some companies, third companies, that they have agents, and through the agents, you're going to go to your end user and give them a little bit more background. And it's enough that you're just stating the go-to-market with those letters when you're talking. But when you're sending the presentation, it won't be enough to say just B2B2C. You'll need to elaborate a little bit more in writing and to say exactly what you said in words. So, and why not necessarily show when you're talking? Because when everything is written and the investor are reading, you're not really taking the stage. I mean, they're not listening to you because they're busy in reading. And this is something we know from neuroscience studies, that when we see something written, we need to read. It's almost impulsive. We can't control it. And when we are reading, very rarely we can also listen. So when we are in present, then they need to see us, and we connect with people on the personal basis. When they see a document, the document should be clear enough so they understand everything that you would say. What else? Thank you for the presentation. Slides are perfect. Okay, thank you for the compliment. Yeah, any other? Put a QR code to your LinkedIn again. Oh, yes, sure. Just 1 second, because I closed it. And let me reshare my screen. Come on, Zoom. Yeah.
Excellent. Do we have any final questions before we close? Okay. Well, on behalf of Paul Mirage and the Mirage Institute, Jude, thank you so much for taking the time today to enlighten our Mirage tribe. Highly appreciate you and what you're doing. And everyone, thank you for joining, for taking the time. Until next week.
Thank you very much for participating and joining us. And thank you for having me, Mirage.
Thank you.
Thank you and good night.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It was very interesting.
Thank you, Yuri.